Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And once again, we'd like to thank all of our listeners for listening to the podcast. We look at our stats, and we've actually seen a pretty significant rise in our stats over the last month or so. So thank you if you're listening. If you're a new listener, welcome. We issue episodes every week on a Wednesday. And go back and find some of our old ones if you're new to the podcast. But yeah, thank you for listening.
And I love how I give them a thumbs up like they can see me, Tim.
Well, sometimes if I get the time, I do extract some of this content and put it on YouTube. But so maybe I will see if I can find your thumbs up and put it out there on YouTube.
I do that. Like you guys laugh, but I've seen Tim do it too. We'll make motions to each other when we're talking, like we'll wave or something, and then we're like, wait, no, they don't. They can't. But anyway, yay, we're excited though.
Exactly. Okay, so Joy has got some things to open the episode. I think she has a story and a challenge.
All right. So if you guys, I'm just going to give Tim one because he hates this game, but he's trying to rectify it. We'll only do about 3 of these. But if you heard this feel last time, basically me and Tim are two people who literally spend multiple weeks in a row talking about music. Can't play the game where you give somebody a word and then you name what it comes from or name a song with it in it. So this word is very specific. And the only reason I'm going to give it to Tim is because have you walked outside right now? It looks like a hurricane is happening.
Yeah, I got home from work about 5:30, and normally here by about 5:30 at this time of year, it's getting dark or it's almost completely dark. And I decided that I would try a night walk to see how that works. It's all pavements around here, so it's I'm not walking in the road. And I thought I'd try a short walk after work because I like to do it. And I got home, and then it's like you say, it's like a hurricane season or something. I think it's raining. It's all going on.
The wind is like howling. It's been nice these last few days, knock on wood, because we had a really bad cold spell. Like it's been like 60 degrees. So your word is a very easy word, Tim, and it's right on brand. It's just rain.
That would be garbage. I'm only happy when it rains. Are you familiar with that song?
I'm only happy when it rains. Yeah. I always think of that song because I love the rainy nights.
That's a good song too.
Who was that guy? He's a one-hit wonder. Oh, he passed away not too long ago.
It's not Andy Kim, is it?
Let's give it a Google on air. Let's see.
Look at this live, ladies and gentlemen. This is live googing.
Eddie Rabbit. That was his name.
There you go. I was getting him mixed up.
Andy Kim has that same sound. I know why you would think that. But yeah, I love that song, but I think he passed away maybe 2-3 years ago. And I didn't know another song by him. But maybe he went off and did great things that I'm not aware of. And if there's some major supporters out there that want to tell me, I'll be happy to find out.
Exactly. Did you know his fans are called bunnies?
No, I didn't. And I feel like you made that up.
Well, as I told you, I made up the term that Billy Ocean fans were called seafarers, hoping it would catch on, but I don't know if it has.
We need to start putting that in different episodes just randomly and seeing if it goes out into the atmosphere. That's funny.
Well, I can tell you that I used to play a place in Uxbridge called the Crown and Treaty. And I used to have a blog called Caesar's Rants. It's been off the air for decades. But anyhow, I used to put gig reports. People used to post to it. It was a whole thing. I sort of invented social media before it even existed. Anyhow.
Okay. Well, there's a lot there in that statement, but continue.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's predated MySpace and Friendster and all that stuff. Caesar's Rants was way before that. But anyhow, don't look for it on the internet because it doesn't exist anymore. But I used to play this place called the Crown and Treaty. And I thought as a social experiment in my gig reports, I would start calling it the C&T. And I'd say, play the gig at the C&T as it's often known, or the C&T as everybody calls it, or something like that. And I did it over the course of a number of times playing there, and it actually started to catch on. I was like, yes, social experiment.
Well, I used to, when I worked at the same place Tim worked at, there are these people who worked for us, and they were called GMB employees. Mm-hmm. And I never knew what that meant. And everybody called them that. And I started asking around, and no one had any clue what they meant. I found one person, and apparently G&B is somebody's initials, who started the program. But I thought, because these people do a lot of like maintenance and grounds work, I thought it was like grounds, maintenance, something. No. And I kept asking, and it's like, you just heard one person say it, and everybody just picked up on it.
Yeah, it was. I asked the same question, and it was the chap who founded the program. And he hadn't founded it very long, and he died. So they decided to call the program after him in his initials.
And it's a wonderful program. But anyway, I just remember asking around. And thank you, Holly from accounting, who knew what it meant.
Well, there we are.
If Holly's listening, hi, Holly. Anyway, so I have a story that I learned today about me and Tim's I guess we would put her up as God status, you know, the one we worship when the sun goes down. It's Dolly Parton, everybody.
Well, of course.
So Dolly was on the Kelly Clarkson TV show, something. I was scanning through the Facebooks or something, and I saw Dolly, so I clicked, and I watched her tell this story to Kelly Clarkson, and I wanted to tell it. It's amazing. So have you ever heard that song, Tim? It's like 2 doors down, we're da-da-da-da-da and having a party. Have you ever heard that Dolly song?
Yeah, I think I have.
So it says 2 doors down, they're drinking and eating and having a party. So that's what it was. And I don't think it was a major hit for her, but it was used in this movie Dumpling that I really like. So I've heard it a few times. Anyway, she was telling Kelly that there's a restaurant in Tennessee, and I can't remember what the name of it was. It's named after somebody, but they had fried oysters that her and her team loved. And every time they went to this city, they had to go to this restaurant and get these fried oysters. It was just tradition. Her band, her roadies, everybody on the bus, the driver, everyone would go get these fried oysters, and they were amazing. Well, she went on a diet, and she was on like a liquid protein diet. So they go to the same town where they have the fried oysters, and they're staying at a hotel or they're something like that. And she can't eat the fried oysters, but the rest of her band, the roadies, the bus driver, everybody went and ate them. And so she was literally 2 doors down for them, could hear them eating the oysters. And that's where the song came from. 2 doors down there, drinking and eating and having a party is literally all written because of fried oysters.
Well, there you go. I didn't know that.
I didn't either. And I thought it was hilarious that she had a famous... It's always interesting to me when I can get where people, because we always seem to think, or maybe it's just me, Tim, I seem to think songs are probably have more serious of a meaning or something more potentially like, you know, went into their brain and made them write this song. And she was like, no, I was just sad because I was sitting there and I couldn't eat what they were eating. And it sounded like they were all partying while I was just sitting there drinking my liquid protein.
Well, yeah, that's the thing with songs. Some songs are incredibly deep. Some songs are telling a story. Some songs are written to help you through a trauma. Some songs are, you know, all kinds of things like that. And some are just frivolous and just the first thing that comes into your head when you write it, or a story about eating food on tour.
But I mean, it also speaks to her ability to write a song because, like, you know, the whole thing about she wrote I Will Always Love You and Jolene on the same day. Talk about a very profitable day in your life. Mm-hmm. But like, I can't, we've talked about this, Tim. The one skill I will never have is to be able to write music. I can't. Like, I cannot write a song to save my life. It will never happen. I just don't hold those skills.
Yeah, as I said before, I've written some songs, but not really lyrics. But when it comes to music, I'm better collaborating with somebody. I can come up with great guitar parts on a song, but writing it from scratch, it's not really my forte. I
just don't have that, like, because a lot of people, you know, you hear different artists talk about the, you know, the rhythm comes first, or the song comes first, or the lyrics come first, and then they add, or like I've heard Lady Gaga, who's wrote a lot of her own music. She talks about a lot of times she'll have like a little piece, just like a little buzzword in her head that comes up a bunch, and then eventually she pulls a song out of it. I'm like, that would never happen to me, not once. Anyway, so if you have that skill, you're one-upping on me. But I just thought that was cute that whole song was written about Dolly Parton not being able to eat fried oysters.
Well, there we are. Dolly can do no wrong, as we know.
Yes. All right. Now, moving into our episode, it is Joy's turn, and I have a very specific topic that Tim will adore. It's the Tom Jones episode.
Oh, the Tom Jones TJ.
So I went and did some deep diving into Mr. TJ today. I looked up kind of his history. I looked up some cool music facts about him, and then we're just going to talk about his most popular songs, which we've hit a few of them here and there. But I just thought, for our America, we joke about how we don't know anything about it. So I hoped I could rectify that. So I'm going to start by just giving you guys some brief history. So he was born on June 7th, 1940. His name is Sir Thomas Jones Woodward, and he does have an OBE. It specifically says that outside of his name on everything that I reference. So that's that thing Tim says that the Queen gives you. I don't know exactly what it means, but
it's like the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
There you go. So so basically, he began his career in the 1960s and had a string of top 10 hits. So he had a lot of hits kind of very quickly. Mm-hmm. He toured regularly with appearances in Vegas. And they said from the time he became famous to 2011, he performed in Vegas at least once a week. Like at least a full week, what would be like 7 days every year. Even if he didn't do it consecutively, like a full week since he became famous to when he, stopped in 2011 or whatever, he was literally at least 7 days a year were dedicated to performing in Vegas.
Wow. I mean, I am lucky. I have seen Tom Jones in Vegas. I saw him at I believe it was the MGM Grand, I think, like a ballroom type thing there. There was maybe 1,500 people, 2,000 people, maybe 1,500 people. And it was the best thing ever. It was like cocktail tables. Hannah and I were drinking martinis, and then Tom Jones came out. It was just the best. It's like I'm living the high life.
I mean, that's fair. And what I thought was really cool is this, and I've noticed this about him too. He has a large variety: pop, R&B, show tunes. He can do country, he can do dance, he can do soul, he can do gospel. So, like, I imagine his shows are kind of all encompassing like that.
They are, because you go through. I mean, you're obviously going to speak about his career and his music, but it goes through everything from the early days to the more contemporary stuff that he done. And it's like every one of the songs, you're like, oh, this one and this one. And the other thing is that Tom is not afraid to do cover versions, especially in concert. And when I seen him twice. I saw him in Vegas once. I saw him in Bournemouth in the UK once. And he was on a kick of performing Lenny Kravitz's Are You Gonna Go My Way? And he covered that. And it's like, wow, look at this. It's Tom.
So in 2008, the New York Times called him a musical shapeshifter who could slide from a soulful rasp to a pop crooner with a voice of a husky, but was also pretty. And I'm like, what does that even mean? The voice of a husky, but it's also pretty. Because I guess he's got that baritone kind of rasp. But I just thought it was funny. That's how they described him. Says he's sold over 100 million records with 36 top 40 hits in the UK and 19 in the US. So I did not give him enough credit because he did have 19 in the US. He's also dabbled in acting. He played the lead role in a 1979 television film, Pleasure Cove, which I've heard of but never actually watched. Sorry, guys. Me and Tim have told you we don't watch TV. But he also appeared as himself in Tim Burton's 1996 film Mars Attacks, which I did not know that.
Absolutely. I've seen Mars Attacks. That's on my approved viewing list. It is set in Vegas. I think the other lead character is a football player or something. And it's very famous that there's a hotel there was a hotel in Vegas called the Landmark. And if you see any old footage of Vegas, you will see it's like a small tower hotel. I suppose it's like almost like the design of the Space Needle you have in Seattle. I think it was as tall as that. And then there's a big long lift, and there was a ballroom in there, and there was rooms and stuff like that. And they were going to demolish it anyway because it's now the Las Vegas Convention Center, and it's actually now just a car park, to be honest with you. But what they did is they used the demolition of the landmark in the film. So like the aliens come in, they attack, and then I think it's set in the landmark. Then of course the aliens shoot the landmark hotel, and then it falls over and it's destroyed. But of course it was going to be demolished anyway, so they used it in the film. But I would actually recommend that film. Tom is actually pretty entertaining in it.
I'll have to give it a Google later because it does sound kind of interesting. I thought it was interesting that it was directed by Tim Burton too. So He in 1970 he actually received a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in a television series, musical, or comedy, and was nominated for hosting the television show This Is Tom Jones. Did you ever watch This Is Tom Jones?
No, but I've seen clips of it because it was a variety show he had on US television, and he had a lot of like artists who were popular at that time, and then he would sing their songs or sing duets with them.
Yeah, so I did a little bit of it. So it was a variety TV show. It was on ABC here, which is just one of our major broadcasting networks for anyone out there. I mean, I think it literally stands for American Broadcasting Network. It ran between 1969 and 1971 and had a total of 65 color episodes. So I guess at some point it was in black and white. And so it was also had different like comedy sketches that were kind of ongoing. But Tim's right. They had a bunch of different artists come on and he'd perform with them, sing, and then there'd be like little comedy bits in it.
Yeah, I used to have a CD box set of Tom Jones, not the one I have now, the one I had years ago, before I regrettably sold my CD collection. I actually bought it in Germany, of all places. It was 4 CDs in a box, and it was all the music from This Is Tom Jones. And it was him covering, like Satisfaction and songs you wouldn't expect him to cover. And it was great. And sadly, it got sold in the big CD color the early 2000s. And I don't think I ripped it. I don't have it in my archives, unfortunately.
What I think I like about him, what I'm learning anyway, is it sounds like he doesn't take himself too seriously either. He enjoys performing. And so he'll just perform a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really, like you're saying, those songs that are like, oh my gosh, where did this come from? It's so great. It's because I feel like he doesn't take it all too seriously. He just enjoys performing. Just a theory. Exactly.
And the other thing with Tom Jones is he never writes his own songs.
Yeah.
He only ever performs other people's material.
Yeah, that's what I was reading on here. And they said that, he's really known for covers of Bob Dylan, John Lee Hooker, Billy Joel. There's just lists. But even things as like, and he used to bring on musicians like Booker T to perform with him. Like he's known for having all those covers and then bringing other artists and doing stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so we'll get into kind of the songs in a minute. I just thought it was kind of fun to talk about his little history. And then I brought up some facts you may not know about him, that kind of thing. Let me bring up There's 13 facts that, he had a new album come out not too long ago. It was last year. And so this was just kind of facts that people were talking about. Did you know he discovered his love of music at 12? He spent 2 years in quarantine while he was recovering from tuberculosis.
I didn't know that. I mean, certainly back in the 40s, that was a devastating disease that probably killed lots of people. So we're lucky that Tom pulled through that.
Yeah, it's that one that you see stereotypically in every TV show, right? It's always tuberculosis. But yeah, he was spent 2 years in quarantine. Doesn't that make us whining about COVID quarantine seem kind of weak? Considering he was there at 12 years old, too. Because, I mean, I guess if you're going to learn to play an instrument or sing or something, if you're stuck at home, that's the best time to do it.
I suppose so, especially in your formative years like that.
Fair enough. So we're going to keep this PG, but let's just say he has stated that he has been with 250 groupies a year at the height of his career.
Yeah, I could believe that. So Tom is known for his how can I put it, adventures with members of the opposite sex whilst on tour. The only thing I would say to that is his wife Linda pretty much gave her blessing to that. She was like, I don't want to know, but you must come home to me. I
mean, I wouldn't want to know either. I'd just be like, whatever. Especially if you're making Tom Jones money, I might be able to turn.
Yeah, no, she was just like, whatever you do, Tom, it's your business, but you always come home to me.
Yeah, there's also some speculation if he has some other children besides his son. I kind of dabbled in that, but has been confirmed or denied. Anyway, so some more facts was he was, because of his wonderful relationship with groupies, people like to throw stuff at him on stage, and he is very serious that he hates having things thrown at him on stage. He has actually lost it on people before. Which I kind of get. I wouldn't want people throwing stuff on me at stage either.
Well, on the occasions that I've seen him, it's very common at a Tom Jones concert that women will throw underwear at Tom, and then he will mop his brow with it in a kind of comedic fashion, and that's like a thing. But he doesn't mind that on occasion. But when I saw him in Bournemouth, some dude walked down to the front of the stage, and he had a big pair of massive comedy underpants, like you get in a joke shop that was huge, and threw them onto Tom, and he didn't like that.
Yeah, so I guess he says he hates it when he's in the middle of singing something because it takes his attention off, which I totally get. That would throw me off too.
Sure.
I mean, but anyway, so it's come up enough that they felt the need to mention it. So I did not know this, but it kind of makes sense. He met Elvis Presley on the Hollywood set of Presley's movie Paradise, Hawaiian Style, and they were very close friends until Presley's death in 1977. And he performed many times with Elvis.
There we go. There must be some recordings of that. I don't ever remember hearing a recording of Elvis and Tom together. I
don't either, but it says he's performed with Elvis, Janis Joplin, Aretha Franklin, and John Denver, for example.
Yeah, I mean, Tom does no wrong. I mean, he's almost in Dolly territory. Everyone loves Tom.
So I didn't know this either. So the Tom Jones, because, obviously his name is much longer. Mm-hmm. But apparently his manager renamed him Tom Jones to catch on the popularity of Academy Award-winning film that was out in 1963. Was there somebody named that?
I've heard of the film Tom Jones, but I've never seen it. And I always thought it was a funny coincidence that it was the same name.
Well, I guess because it's so close to because what was his full name? It's like Thomas something, right? Thomas, let me go back. Thomas Jones Woodward. Of course, I don't know if that's the name he was born with or if that's like his full name now. Let's see. He was born Thomas John Woodward, but he changed it to Thomas Jones Woodward. So there you go, guys.
Ah, there we are.
And he was born in South Wales in some very long city name that I'm not going to try to say.
There we are. The other thing you have to remember, of course, is that Jones is an incredibly popular and common name in Wales. So changing your name to Jones would sort of cement the fact that you are from Wales.
So the interesting thing about that is his parents' names. His dad's name was Thomas Woodward, but his mother's maiden name was Jones, Frida Jones.
There we are.
There we are. Did not know that, but Tim, that kind of helped solidify it. So back to this. So apparently he has been on a coach on The Voice for 9 seasons in the UK. For 9 seasons. It's hard to believe that's even been around for 9 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, these karaoke popularity contest things have been on far too long, in my opinion. They've probably been around 20 years at this point.
Yep, I agree. So before he hit it big, Tom Jones worked in a glove factory and construction. I never really think about the idea. I guess I mean, I know things come from factories, but gloves are not something I imagine large factories making.
Well, I mean, where do you think they come from? I mean, mostly these days, clothing and including gloves come from like China, or they come from Indonesia, or they come from those kind of countries in the world with big manufacturing hubs where labor tends to be cheaper. And you can argue the positives and negatives of that another time, but that's typically where clothes come from. But
no, I thought they came from the glove theory.
Yeah, but before Vietnam and places like that were making clothes, I mean, there was big manufacturing hubs, especially in the UK, and maybe Wales was known as the big place where all the gloves came from. I don't know.
Well, possibly. I just, for some reason, when I was like glove factory, and then I started thinking, I'm like, well, they have to come from somewhere. So yeah, they're probably coming from a factory. It just threw me off. And I cannot imagine seeing Tom Jones do construction, but I feel like that's because I'm imagining Tom Jones the way he looks now versus the way he probably looked when he was doing said construction.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Jones still is a very handsome man. So you imagine Tom Jones in his 20s, shirtless, doing construction. Tall, right? What's that?
He's very tall, isn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Well, let's see. Let's see if my thing tells me his height. Because he looks tall, but I don't know for sure. That could just be the way the camera is. How tall are you, Tom Jones? All right, let's just look it up. Tom Jones again. I want to know his height. Height. Well, it's only 5'10".
I'm taller than him. I'm 6 feet.
I said that's Charlie's an inch taller than him. Charlie's. Why did I see him like he was tall? Maybe
I think it's his imposing nature. It's his big voice, his big personality, and the way that he carries himself suggests that he is a tall, large man. But maybe he's not.
There we go. Not that it matters. So, speaking of his wife that Tim was talking about earlier, Jones married his childhood sweetheart, Melinda Rose. How do you notice how to say her last name, Tim? It's Trenchard.
Trenchard.
Sure. When they were just 16 years old, they were married until her death in April 2016, and the couple's son Mark was born the month following their wedding.
There we go.
Well, there we are. And then when Jones was younger, he had a band that they called Tommy Scott and the Senators. He got his OBE in 1999 and was knighted from the Queen for services of music in 2006. And my last little fact about him before we get into the music is Bill Clinton himself personally invited Tom to perform at the New Year's Eve 2000 Millennium Celebration in D.C.
Wow. There we go. I mean, everyone wants Tom to perform for him, you know.
I wonder if he does that thing. Like, we talked about you can pay Elton John $1 billion and he'll show up at your party. Wonder if Tom Jones does that.
Well, he has a manager, and I understand he likes making money. So
probably
there is a price for most things. I mean, there's some musicians and what have you will be retired and just won't do it for whatever price. But folks who are out there that are active, if you want to book them, you speak to their manager, and the manager will give you a price, even a ridiculous price. And if you're willing to pay it, Tom Jones will turn up at your house and sing to you. I mean, that's how it works.
That's true. But I feel like you wouldn't get some. I could be wrong, but I don't think Madonna's going to do it.
I don't know. If it's a $2 million paycheck for performing for 45 minutes at a kid's birthday party, I mean, I think you'd probably do it.
That's true. I mean, I guess you're right. Fair enough. Money seems to make people do things.
Sure. And then even musicians who are stinking rich would consider doing it because they're often affiliated with charities or charitable trusts that they work with. So, I mean, it's a few hours work from them, and it's a bunch of money that could go to something that's important to them.
That's fair. That's what Elton John does it for. He does it for his foundation. So anyway, if you want to call Tom Jones and find out how much it costs, let us know. Not that we have the money to pay him, but fair enough. So the first song we're going to talk about is the song that I probably associate the most with Tom Jones, and that It's Not Unusual, which was one of his first major hits. But that song, It's Not Unusual, it has to have made him so much money because I know it was used in 10 Things I Hate About You. There's a famous dance to it. I feel like it is a pop culture phenomenon, that song.
Sure. I mean, he obviously didn't write it, but from a performance perspective, absolutely. I mean, that is the song that everyone often thinks of when they think of Tom Jones. And as I may have told the story before, I played a Christmas season at the Lakeside Country Club in Frimley in England, which is famous for having the darts competition there every year. I think it actually left the Lakeside for a while, but then it came back. But anyway, this isn't the darts. This isn't the darts episode.
Fair enough.
And I played It's Not Unusual in the band that I was in at the time called The Guilty Party. And then when we went backstage in the break between acts, the compere there told us that the guy who wrote that song was in the audience.
Well, there you go. So you're basically his cousin or something now, by virtue somehow.
Effectively.
That seems a little bit far-fetched, but we're going to go with it. So the next one that kept coming up is one that Tim maybe listened to. It apparently was one of his first major hits, and that is The Green, Green Grass of Home. And that was in 1966.
Yes, it's an old country song. And he had it on a record, apparently. And he wrote the lyrics out by hand. And in fact, I think one of the lyrics that he sings in his version is wrong because that's how, when he transcribed it off the record and wrote the lyrics down just listening to the record, he heard it wrong. But he always sings it the same way, apparently. So
from what I've gathered it's basically So it said, who at Decca Records is how they wrote it, had the bright idea of associating Jones with a violent death. It was an unusual marketing tactic, but it worked. First came the Ballad of a Death Row Prisoner on the day of his execution, which is a very much a period piece, kind of like spoken word, like Tim talked about, or we talked about. It kind of reminds you of like those kind of old folksy songs you're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
But it was literally somebody at the record company was talking to him and stuff. It was a marketing technique. They thought it would be interesting to get that out there because it was different than what you were seeing from everybody else.
Mm. And the funny thing about the Green, Green Grass of Home is that, yes, it was originally a country song. It was written as a country song. Mm-hmm. But for most people now, when they hear that song, they associate it with Tom Jones, and they associate it especially with Wales.
Interesting. Well, is folksy this is going to sound stereotypical, and don't come from the internet. I've never been to Wales. I imagine, like, in my mind, I find like folksy kind of music probably popular there, kind of like bluegrass in our area or something.
It's more Welsh singers. It's like gospel-y type singing, I suppose. It's not so much like country style music traditionally that comes from Wales. People from Wales often will have very good voices. They're known for folks who really can sing well.
And that could be partially because of the accent too, I would imagine. Because we talked about people in the UK actually have an advantage when it comes to singers. If you didn't know that, because they have like, you guys, the way you use your vowels, the way you like pronounce your vowels is actually helpful when singing.
Oh, well, there we go. Well, the thing is, people in Wales speak with a very thick Welsh accent. A lot of people speak with a very thick Welsh accent. And I've been to Wales many times. I saw Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds in Cardiff with my friend Hogg. We had our honeymoon in Portmeirion in Wales.
If Hogg ever ends up on one of our bingo cards, nobody better ever play it as a drinking game again, because you're gonna put someone in an alcoholic coma. Because I think Hogg comes up one time per episode. We started like checking a box. He's like a guest show host that's not here.
Yeah, he listens. I know he listens. Maybe we should invite him on to co-host an episode. He is a incredibly entertaining, funny, and an intelligent chap. So he would make great co-host material for an episode. If you're listening, Paul, and you want to do it, let me know, because it would be much fun.
And then he could tell his side of all these stories, Tim.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's gonna be like, now, Tim, I know you remembered it this way, but.
Well, one thing I will say is that I do have a significantly better memory than he does. So often I remember these stories that he forgets. So there we are.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, another song that I really, really like from him, but it's kind of an intense song. It's Delilah, but it's the one that I think of the most when I think, besides it's not unusual when it comes to Tom Jones.
Yeah, again, this is classic Tom Jones material. If you buy a best of Tom Jones, Delilah is going to be up there. If you're streaming a Tom Jones playlist, Delilah is going to be the second song they play after It's Not Unusual. It's just so iconically Tom. And it's got that line, she's there laughing, and people go, ha, 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 ha.
Well, and it's got that cool, like, when they, I saw the light, the flickering, whatever that intro is, and you got the noise in the background. It has such a cool, very distinct, his music's very distinct. I think that's important. Does that make sense? Like, it's very, like, you would know it from a mile away. Now, whoever wrote that song obviously was not Tom Jones, but I associate 110% with the very tall, which he's not tall, we established, but in my brain he is, man singing with the mic, and he's got definitely a suit on, and there's like the cable still hooked up. His microphone's not wireless. There's no way it was wireless.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing about Delilah, it is a classic karaoke song. Like, if you go to a karaoke, probably someone's going to do Delilah, because it's just perfect fodder for that.
Well, it's about a guy where isn't the girl cheating on him?
I think so, yeah.
Cheating on him. I mean, you got a bunch of drunk people at a bar singing karaoke. It's right up their alley. Think about it.
Exactly.
Well, there you go, Tom Jones. We love some Delilah. Now, this one, is another Okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I know more Tom Jones songs than I think I do. But this one is one that gets stuck up my head. And if it's a definition of an earworm, I don't know what is. It's She's a Lady.
Yeah, she's all I ever want. She's the kind I like to flaunt and take to dinner.
And then
she's got style, she's got grace, she's a winner.
And then I'm wondering why it says that he has a track record with the groupies, and I never thought about it before. But then you say those to me, and I'm like, well, I kind of get it. I mean, he was going for the crooner thing, you know?
Exactly. There's some other great lyrics in them. I can't remember the whole lyrics are fabulous.
All I hear is she's a lady. Whoa, 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 she's a lady. That's all I hear in that part, that little scene right there. It's one of those songs that I had heard it 1,000 years, and my brain will just start singing that.
Yeah, and it's got a really cool guitar. It goes at the very beginning. And it wouldn't surprise me if it's someone like Jimmy Page playing guitar on it, because a lot of people initially said that he played the lead guitar, and it's not unusual, and it's not him. But he was in and around that music scene when that music was being played, because Jimmy Page was a session guitarist at that time. Mm-hmm. So it really wouldn't surprise me if it's someone like Jimmy Page playing guitar on She's a Lady. You know, it's interesting. Do you know who wrote She's a Lady? It's Paul Anka, the Canadian guy who the ANKA, he did the Lonely Boy. Yeah. So that kind of makes sense, because I can hear that now. Let's see if I can find out who's playing guitar. Let's see. It is a cool riff at the beginning. Featuring Tom Jones. She's on my way. Who is playing guitar? It could be a no-name session person that got paid £50 and 50 shillings or something. I don't know. Somebody who worked at Decca UK or Parrot, whatever. But it was produced by Gordon Mills. I'm not familiar with him, but he's a London-based. Gordon Mills. Gordon Mills is the guy who wrote It's Not Unusual, who I performed the song to. Ha ha ha. See, it all comes full circle, everybody. We did that on purpose. I can't figure out who was playing the guitar, Tim. You could just start telling people it was you, and they'll never know, because Wikipedia doesn't tell them. I could edit Wikipedia to say it was me. I mean, I never know. I mean, we're not saying you should do that. I'm just saying you could do that. It's entirely possible. Have you ever made edits to Wikipedia? I have. They made it harder now. You have to they take them back, and they do a verification. But to be fair, the only time I made edits to it was there was somebody on the internet that I didn't like and said some bad stuff, and I put funny things in their Wikipedia articles, so they took them away. Yeah, there's I don't know who monitors that. I don't know whether do Wikipedia have staff. How does that work? I mean, I don't work there, but I would assume they have to. They always ask me to give them money. Yeah, every money's time you use it says the page will be black, and it will say, if you don't pay, this is how Wikipedia would be. I mean, money's got to go somewhere. Yeah, just from a hosting perspective. I mean, it's got to the point where Wikipedia is like Google almost, because if you want to look something up, where do I go? Wikipedia. It's true. Well, it is the first thing that pops up when you put anything in Google. Like when I'm doing this episode and I type Tom Jones in Google, what's going to come up? Wikipedia. What's the first thing I'm going to click? Wikipedia. I mean, I was going to say, Wikipedia is just great. I worked a job a number of jobs ago that was not in this country, and their web filtering at the time was set up that anything that was not a .org, you had to sign in with your credentials, so it was logged. Yeah. But if it was a .org, it was not logged. So I used to sit on a help desk on a bored afternoon when the phone wasn't ringing and I was all up to date. And I used to just browse Wikipedia articles one after the other. And you might read something and it goes, and that was on a 747. So you read the 747 article and then it links to something else, links to something else, and links to something else. And before you know, it's 5 o'clock. Yeah. I mean, when I may have worked at a call center and I wasn't supposed to be doing that, but I'm just sitting here listening to people yell at me on the phone. I may have spent some time on Wikipedia. Just saying. Years ago, everybody. I would never now. Absolutely not, Joy. And never. So anyway, I did not know this, and I want to find it. I'm curious if Tim has heard his version of Mama Told Me Not to Come. Yes, it's with the Stereophonics, and it's off his Reloaded album. He had an album that came out, I think it must be early 2000s, maybe late 90s, now I come to think of it. And he recorded songs with contemporary artists. And his version of Mama Told Me Not to Come, he recorded it with the Stereophonics. Yeah. And I'm very familiar with it because in Guilty Party, we used to cover that version.
Huh. Well, see, I love the original because it says it's fellow Welsh singer, which you were just saying, Carrie Jones of Stereophonics, and then the Randy Newman cover. I've heard that song a million times, and I had no clue he did a version.
Yeah, it's I would check out if you have a streamer, however that works. I don't know what there's like a modern technology where you does it come out the tap? I have no idea.
Something like that. It's actually on MySpace is where you find it.
There you go. So go onto your MySpace, connect to your Friendster, crack open an MSN Messenger window, and maybe you could ping me on ICQ while you're at it. And look up Reloaded, the Tom Jones album. There are such good covers on there. And as I said, he sort of reinvented himself almost with that album.
See, that song is a favorite of mine. So when I come across that, I was like, oh, I've got to hear this. But I could see how it would work for his voice. That's one of the ones that I really could see he could do really well. So anyway, I thought that was super interesting, and I'm very excited to go find that. Now, we're going to go back to cliche. I don't want to say cliche, but classic, because we're not going to call him cliche. Classic. What's New, Pussycat?
Yeah.
I have to bring it up. Which that song was for a movie, right?
I think it's a film of the same name, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and it won an Oscar for Best Original Song.
There we go. I mean, Tom is unstoppable. He's being knighted. He's got Oscars. I mean,
he was, he even did acting and won awards for it, Academy Awards. I don't know, but it also says that this song proved to be a bigger hit in America. So, What's New, Pussycat actually was topped out at 11 in the UK on the charts, but it went to number 1 in America.
Wow. Well, I remember having a compilation album of Tom Jones, and it was what I would class as a petrol station grade compilation of Tom Jones, where you would buy a CD in a petrol station and it would be like £6 or something. And it would be the greatest hits of Tom Jones. And it probably wasn't officially released by the record company. And it was some kind of shonky compilation thing from a label you've never heard of. And I had it, and it had What's New, Pussycat on it. And I remember it saying in brackets, saying from the film What's New, Pussycat.
Well, there you go.
They were very keen to point that out.
Very important that we put the specification. Now, this was interesting to me. So What's New, Pussycat was in 1965. Another song that is very iconically Tom Jones is Sex Bomb, but it came out in 2000? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Was it really not that long ago?
No, again, we used to cover Sex Bomb in Guilty Party, and that was around the time that I was in that band. I think was it with a rapper called Moose T or a producer called Moose T?
Yes. So it says with a disco lit number with producer Moose T from Tom's 1999 comeback album Reload, which you were just saying, and Sex Bomb was in the. I seriously would have thought that song was older.
Yeah, I remember it because Barry, the singer of Guilty Party, loves Tom Jones. He's hugely influenced by Tom Jones, and he's always admired him as a singer, and he's seen him perform and stuff like that. So when that album came out, that's why we ended up doing those two songs.
Well, there you go. I mean, it does sound like this album was supposed to be, it sold very well. So what I'm looking at right now is the charts. This is specifically streams. That song has been streamed 8.9 million times.
8.9 million streams, and Tom Jones has made about $300 from that.
If we're lucky.
If we're lucky.
Probably more like 30.
Yeah, maybe you can take him and a few of his closest friends out for some food, and that's about it.
I mean, it is what it is. I don't control the streaming, Tim. But another one that he did a version of, and I want to say I've heard this, was on that album. It was it wasn't on that album. It was in that same year, 1999. Apparently, his version of "Baby It's Cold Outside" is very popular.
Yes, again, that is great, and I think it's from who he sings it with. It's another Welsh singer, and I can't think of her name.
It's Cerys Matthews.
Yeah, Cerys Matthews. And I forget what band she's from. It's another great Welsh band.
That part I don't know. They just named her, saying that he recorded his own version with her, and then apparently he has a version where he's also just singing by himself, which doesn't make sense because maybe it's cold outside. It's usually a duet, but
yeah, that is just, you recorded it in one session and then you just mute the other person.
I mean, you're probably right. But this song I wasn't familiar with, but I thought it was interesting. I need to go figure out my get my knowledge on. But have you heard of a song, I'll Never Fall in Love Again?
Yes, that is a huge power ballad. It's got it has the orchestra behind it. It's out in love, I'll never ever fall.
Okay, maybe I have heard it.
Yeah,
that sounds familiar.
It was my rendition that sparked that memory for you.
Well, if they're looking for anybody to replace Tom Jones in Vegas, I'll give them your number.
No, don't do that. I'm very lucky. I have a number of skills under my belt, but singing is not one of them. Now, as I've said before, I have performed Love Shack a few hundred times in my life. And then I closed that chapter by recording an online video with Jenny from the Freak Jam. And that is where my retirement from the Love Shack vocal world was there.
That's funny. So anyway, so that one I was reading about, and I thought it was interesting. So it was written by Lonnie, and the last name is Donegan. You guys know me. I don't try to pronounce it. Who offered the song to Tom as the pair forged a friendship as they performed together on the same circuits in the 60s. One night, Lonnie said, "Look, I have this song. You'd sing the pants off of it." Tom recalled in an interview with them at Daily Mail. "I recorded it, but I can't really sing it. It's sort of a rewrite of a song from the 30s when the Depression was going on, called I'm Never Going to Cease My Wandering." I knew this song would be really popular for him, and it's one that they like to sing in pubs in Wales, apparently before he recorded it, the original. But the song from the Depressions, I just thought that was a cool little story behind it. And basically, he's like, "I wrote it, but I can't sing it, but you would sing the pants off of it."
That's cool. I mean, Lonnie Donegan is a very famous musician from the early days of rock and roll. He was a pioneer of a kind of music called skiffle, which was sort of folk, very early sort of British folk music, I suppose, but kind of like cross between rock and roll and folk. Yeah. And a lot of people cite Lonnie Donegan as an influence. Brian May does, Richie Blackmore from Deep Purple. A lot of people who were growing up in that era would talk about how great Lonnie Donegan was. Now, of course, I have a Lonnie Donegan story.
Yeah.
My dad used to have a TV shop in Twickenham, which is not far from Hounslow. There we are for your bingo cards. And Lonnie Donegan was a customer, and he had a Bang & Olufson TV set. Are you familiar with Bang & Olufson?
Never heard those words before in my life.
Bang & Olufson is I think they still exist, but it was very high-end lifestyle TV and hi-fi equipment before Apple existed. So it was Danish. It was a Danish brand. So you could buy a Bang & Olufsen TV, and of course it was like a normal TV, but the cabinet was very stylish. And then they had stereo systems, which are just places like a piece of glass, and you put your hand on it, and then the glass doors would open. So it's that sort of Apple design before Apple even existed. And they were a Bang & Olufsen dealer. So it was expensive stuff, and it was high end. So you used to get a few people come in who could afford that kind of stuff. Lonnie Donegan had a Bang & Olufsen TV, and I used to help out in this TV shop occasionally in school holidays. And Lonnie Donegan came in, and he handed me his Bang & Olufsen TV remote control wrapped in a plastic bag, and told me that his son had dropped it in the toilet.
That was it. So did we replace the TV? Did it have a warranty? What happened?
I gave it to my dad, and I said, "Lonnie Donegan's got a TV remote outside. What should I do?" And then he went out and spoke to him. I don't know what happened from there.
Darn, the story. I was hoping it would get a full ending. That's funny. Me and Charlie, when we bought our TV, so we bought this one off of we have a 4K TV. What brand is it? I think it's Samsung. I don't remember. One of those brands. But when we got it, they were selling. So where me and Tim live out, there's a lot of college students near us. And so they sell, when they move out, they'll sell their stuff all the time on Facebook Market. And we occasionally, if you're looking, you'll find a good deal. So this TV is worth quite a bit. But we got it at a discount because the child of the college student that was moving out, because he was like a graduate student, had a son, he had left the remote on the stove, and the remote still works, but the backside of it is completely melted and molded over.
Oh.
So that's how I got a discount on my 4K TV. And it was like, his dad said he walked in and he could smell something, and he was like, "What is that?" And he turns, and there's just a melted remote on his stove, and the kid's like, "I didn't do it," and runs away.
Oh dear. I mean, I feel foolish. We bought our TV, which is a TCL Roku TV, a 55-inch. So Hannah would like a much larger TV, but that's a story for another time. We just went in Walmart and bought it. It wasn't melted or discounted.
Well, the LG that I have, that is the 55-inch, I went into Walmart and bought.
There you go.
We just happened to come across this one, and it was a good deal. So Charlie, Charles is a connoisseur of good deals, to the point that Tim could tell you my house is bursting at the seams with more stuff than anyone could ever need. So that's partially why. All right, back to Tom Jones. I mean, I don't know what TV he has, but it sounds like if he had a TV, he'd probably have one of those fancy ones you were just talking about.
Yeah, I don't know if Bang & Olufsen still make TVs. They the problem with the consumer electronics space generally is a lot of brands got out of that world. And if you see something now and it has a brand on you recognize, it's not made by them. It's like they license the name to slap their name on sort of just junk at this point. So I don't know. I mean, even like the TVs, I mean, you have some premium brands, like some of the Samsungs and stuff can get expensive. But most of the time now, you go into a supermarket, it's a bunch of identical TVs. With brands you've never heard of. You know that you're going to get 2 or 3 years out of them, regardless of who makes it. And then you just buy it, use it, and throw it away. And that's what it's got to the point.
I mean, yeah, and you're right. I used to work for Vizio. So I used to do technical support for Vizio TVs when it was still a thing. And all the TVs came from different factories around the world. They were just slapping their brand on it. Same with the sound bars. My favorite story, though, is I got stuck on the French. So Vizio has like a big following in Canada, which I didn't know until I worked there, but they do. It's a popular brand. So I made the mistake of one time mentioning that I spoke a little bit of French, and they stuck me on the French queue. And I got stuck with this Canadian French man who was very mad that it was right when everybody was learning about fiber optics with the red light coming through. So I just got a voice. I would get the voicemails and have to call them back because of the French line. There wasn't somebody who was on it. I just got a very mad French man screaming at me because his red light wasn't working. And then that was the moment I realized I shouldn't be on the French queue, because it dawned on me, you can know a language, Tim, but not know how to speak IT things to people. I'm like, why did you guys stick me here? All we got across I got to this man was him screaming about a red light and it not working. And at the time, I didn't know he meant like the light coming through the little your fiber optic cable thing. But then like I'm trying to sit there and I'd be like, okay, so I need you. I was like, I'm trying to figure out what kind of port he's using. And I'm like, is HDMI a universal word? Will he know what that means? And then that was the end of my French queue that I never took again.
Yeah, I mean, even when you speak English, like I speak UK English, and I understand and speak US English. So I do supposedly speak UK English because people find it charming, if I'm being honest. But
posh.
In the like technology space, just one simple example. I came here, and the box that you have in your internet that you plug your wireless unit into, or combined depending on how you have it set up, I would call that in UK English a router.
Oh, router.
In this country, they call it a router. And I got my first IT job here, and I was talking about routers, and nobody knew what I was talking about.
That's so awkward. Well, I will say one thing I used to hate is I also did technical support for Dish. Tim could tell you there's a giant Dish call center. He's hired people at his work who did tech support for Dish before, I'm sure. It's one of those places everybody who's lived in this area has worked at some point a lot of the time. So I used to even be a manager there, and I would get annoyed because it would drive me up the wall. I hate it. So your remote control, you might say remote, you might say controller. There are people in the United States who call it a wand.
Really?
Yes. And then the other one that would make me visibly, I would get angry is when they called it my clicker. Oh, my clicker's not working. My clicker's not working. I would be like, I hate, But the wand, the first time someone said wand to me, I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, to make the TV. I was like, your remote? He's like, yeah, my wand. And I'm like, what?
I've heard it called a zapper, a TV zapper, but I've never, ever heard it called a wand. And bearing in mind, I've been in and around consumer electronics my whole life. My dad used to work in that TV shop. I grew up with that. No one has ever called it a wand.
It's like I want to say it's like a northeastern thing. I can't remember specifically, but I want to say it's like a northeastern, but they call it a wand. Clicker is usually just some old lady from the South going, my clicker. You know what I mean? Like just thinking about clicking the buttons.
Sure.
But yeah, that one used to drive me up the wall and the other thing that used to drive me up the wall about doing tech support with TVs, people will think their remote is broken and it's not their remote. It's literally the settings on their TV all the time, Tim. So remotes were like the bane of my existence. So maybe I just have personal vendettas with them. I don't know.
It could be. I mean, as like I said, I can think of 10 people I know that have worked at Dish. I think it's character building, Joy, is what it is. It's like when I was much younger and I worked in retail. It's, some people enjoy a retail career. Good luck to you if you do. But I found it a character building exercise of which I don't wish to return to.
Well, and I will say I've worked retail and I've worked at a call center. A call center is a whole different beast because I don't know if you think this, Tim. You probably deal with this a lot at your work now. It takes an extra skill to be able to help someone over the phone do IT stuff.
Oh, it's a completely different skill set.
I was very good at it because I was very good at explaining things, but there's just something there that you have to have that you learn in a call center that you don't learn anywhere else, or doing tech support over the phone, help desk, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you have to envisage what the person is seeing at the other end.
Mm-hmm. And nothing's worse than the 90-year-old lady arguing with you that her dish box is wireless. I remember one time this lady, she swore to me, Tim, that this box was wireless. It was not wireless. There had to be a wire somewhere running from that box to her TV. Was it running through an old VCR? I don't know. But we argued for 20 minutes about this. And I eventually said, well, if there's no wire, there's your problem. And she just went silent. But anyway, all right, back to Tom Jones. I have no idea how we got there, but the next one is something it's off that Reload album again. That was apparently a very big hit for him, and I've heard this version. It's his version of Burning Down the House.
Yes, with the Nina from the Cardigans. Yep. Again, that is a classic cover, which is a cover of a Talking Heads song. Mm-hmm. And I think we may have discussed it before. It has a video which is very distinctive, and it has people dressed in those sort of skin-tight morph suit things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's why I heard it, Tim. Maybe listen to it on that episode. And the video was kind of creepy, but kind of cool. So it was his first top 10 single in more than a decade and peaked at number 7 in the UK and in the US.
Yeah, I remember when that was out. That was huge.
Well, it was 99 too. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like, I just realized it's actually like 24 years ago, but it doesn't seem that long ago.
The year 2000 was 5 years ago max.
And the 80s were only like 20 years ago.
15 years ago, the 80s.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how that's possible. I hate when you hear those facts about, like, if this show took place in, like, you know what I mean? It would be in the 90s now, but it was in the 70s when you were younger. Like, if the years were the same, and you're like, there's no way. The 70s were only 30 years ago.
Well, it's like I said, Happy Days was set in the 50s and made in the 70s. If Happy Days was made today, it would be set in the early 2000s.
I know, and that's so weird to think about. It's so weird to think about because and I've gotten into this kind of theoretical debate with people. You know that whole thing about time not being linear? Like it's actually not linear scientifically. Like we only perceive it as linear.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of those facts that I sit there and I mull over all the time. And the one thing that still drives me insane is the concept of light years. That concept that, like, if I'm seeing something and you're telling me it's 10 light years away, means it happened 10 years ago, I'm gone. I can't wrap my head around that.
Well, my understanding of light years is it's speed, isn't it? So so if you travel 1 light year, you'd have to travel at the speed of light for 1 year, and that is the distance.
So, but that's the thing, though. So the way our eyes perceive it. So if you're looking at something, and when you're looking at it in the sky, if it's 10 light years away, that means that what you're looking at happened 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Theory.
Absolutely. Well, that's how they have these probes and the Hubble Space Telescope and stuff like that. And I think there's the New Horizons, I think was another one that they sent out recently. That's how they're able to see like the Big Bang and beginnings of universes and nebulas and stuff, because the light is still traveling.
I mean, I get it, but you know what I mean, Tim? It's hard for me as a person to wrap my brain around that. It's just so weird.
Do you know what even just freaks me out? Is that you think that you're sitting here on Earth and you're this planet, and then you're the infinite vacuum of space, and you're just this one planet in the infinite vacuum of space. It just hurts my head.
And it's so weird. It's just like, you see pictures of galaxies and stuff. You're like, that's cool, but I just don't feel like we can comprehend it. There's no way we can.
No, if you just think like the infinite vacuum of space that goes on forever.
Yeah. And then it makes you, then me and Tim could get into me and Tim both believe in aliens. So,
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I think it's a long way to Ace Hardware, and that is not even that far from my house. But when you think of the infinite vacuum of space,
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware store.
Sometimes I might need something, and I think, can I be bothered to walk and or drive to Ace Hardware?
I know,
which is not that far.
Oh God, it's a weird concept. It is, and I don't even think that I don't think there's a way I don't think we're supposed to understand it in some ways. But yeah, how did we get on this subject?
I don't know. And the other thing is on Mars, they have all these Mars rovers and Mars probes. Yeah. And as technology has evolved, it allows them to send back high definition video, very high quality photographs, and even audio of Mars. And I just I sit here thinking, was humanity ever supposed to see or hear this stuff?
I worry about that too. I'm like, maybe it's better we don't go looking where we shouldn't. But did you see the thing about the Mars rover, how it literally they had to get it to it fixed itself the other day? So Charlie was telling me about this. Apparently the Mars rover had gotten a bunch of dirt all over it or something, and they couldn't see, and they told it somehow, however they control it, to basically hit itself against something to knock the dirt off, and it did it.
Yeah, so the way that they can speak to it, there is a satellite which is going around Mars, and then they are able to communicate with that satellite, which then beams it down to the Mars rover. The Mars rover has a nuclear power source in it. I think it has uranium in it, which is how it's predominantly powered, though it does have solar cells as well for charging its batteries. And they're able to send commands. I think it takes 15 minutes to transmit data to and from Mars.
That's so weird.
And they have an identical rover at I think it's JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the NASA people. They have an identical rover where they are. So before they do something like that could be potentially catastrophic or something they haven't done before, they can perform it on their land rover, if you like. Yeah. Before they send the commands.
So, and I just thought it was so cool that they were like, oh yeah, we just had it bang itself on a rock or something, knock the dirt off. I was like, what? But I guess they probably tested it on the one here.
Yeah, and that's how they would do it. And whenever they land those rovers, all the information they get back about the rover going through the atmosphere, it landing, the parachutes, and the first photographs, and all that kind of stuff happened 15 minutes ago. So they get it on their readout.
That's
and
so weird.
And it's just because it takes that long for the radio waves.
That's crazy. And every time when I think of radio waves, I think of light waves, I think of microwaves. I still think about that time, Tim, when I thought that they couldn't have microwaves by the White House because I thought that's where they were setting off bombs. But then it was dawned on me, no, it would trigger them because it's the same frequency. But that wasn't like I just had an image of like Russians with like actual microwaves. I still think about that. I told you that story. That was one of the moments where I was like, oh my God, maybe I am stupid. But anyway, all right. It wouldn't be Tom Jones if we didn't talk about this song. This song, and Tim, tell me when we're getting close to time because I have not been paying any attention. But Thunderball, which is, I'm sure Tim is familiar from 1966. Yep. Apparently, the story goes that Tom fainted in the recording booth after belting the final note of this extravagant James Bond theme.
Yeah, the last note is killer. It goes Thunderball, and it just goes on and on and on. So it doesn't surprise me that he would have maybe passed out at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, they said that he actually, now, no one has confirmed or denied it, but supposedly he fainted in the booth. I mean, if you think about it, if you weren't able to breathe, eventually you would faint.
Exactly. But yeah, that is a great song. Thunderball is not one of my favorite James Bond films because I only really like the ones with Roger Moore in them.
Yeah.
But in the realm of Bond themes, that is fantastic. It's a real period piece because it's like Frank Sinatra style music because it's got like the big bang going on and he's got this huge, big booming voice.
Yeah, exactly. And I just thought we had to bring it up. I thought that was cool. Does he perform that one live? I imagine he probably does.
He does, and I've seen him perform it twice.
Does he hit the note at the end, or does he maybe take it down a notch when he performs it live?
I don't know. When I saw him in Vegas, I was pretty near the front, and that was a very powerful performance of Thunderball by Tom.
Well, if he can do it on stage, I imagine he can do it in the record booth. So maybe people are lying about the thing. I don't know. So this one is one that I want to say Tim may have talked about in the other episode, or maybe I've just heard it. It is his version of Kiss from 1988. Have you heard his version, Tim?
Yes, I've heard it. And again, I've performed it in the Guilty Party.
You guys were basically just a Tom Jones cover band.
Well, Barry Browning liked Tom, so a lot of the Tom stuff ended up being in our set.
Your alternate name should just be like parenthesis Tom Jones parenthesis. But apparently it's a cover that he performs at his Vegas show. And it was a collaboration with synth pop group The Art of Noise. And it is credited with reviving Tom's career because it reached number 5 on the official charts in 1988.
I remember that. I remember when it was in the charts. Art of Noise were actually a great collaborative of musicians. I think they had some core members, but some people came in and out. They had a song with, do you remember Max Headroom?
Yes.
Yeah, they had a song with him called Paranoia.
I don't know if I know that song, but I've heard of him. Interesting.
And then I think they had another song back prior to this called Close to the Edit as well by The Art of Noise.
See, I've heard of them and I think I've seen bits and pieces of them, but I'm not super familiar with them. I mean, I feel like they're probably a UK-based thing, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, well, 100%.
Because they've got that synth pop kind of avant-garde guy in big glasses yelling at you thing going on. I love how I didn't describe that in any way. People know what I'm trying to say.
Well, I tell you what, Joy, we're getting close to time. Why don't you do one more?
Okay.
End with a classic Tom song.
All right. So let's think about this. I feel like the pressure is on. Let's see. If I were Tom Jones, You Are My World. Are you familiar with that song, Tim?
I'm indeed. That again came from my petrol station grade Tom Jones compilation.
Fair enough. I mean, if I remember right, doesn't that one have a really weird music video?
I think so. See, a lot of these songs I've never seen the video.
The only reason that one stands out to me is obviously I've heard the song because it's pretty popular. It's 70s. It's on the same She's a Lady album. But I want to say the music video is like him in like the sun. Like he's in the sun. Like his face is in the sun, which really makes me weirded out because it reminds me of that guy from the Teletubbies. Do you remember the Teletubbies song?
Yeah. And that little baby is like 50 years old now or something.
Well, that goes back to reminding us how old we are. Thanks. When did Teletubbies come out?
It was late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, it was definitely late 90s.
Well, it would have been, yeah, that makes sense because I was just past the age. Like I was more of like a teenager or maybe preteen because I wasn't in the age group that was watching Teletubbies. I was just past it. So it probably would have been like 99, 2000, something.
Yeah, it had a cult following because it was for kids. It was a kids' TV show. Yeah. But it was one of those things that it was cool to watch the Teletubbies because it was wacky. And also it sort of had a stoner following because it was so out there.
Well, I just remember like in America, it was also merchandise was everywhere. Like you could get the little Teletubbies in your Burger King meal. You know what I mean? Those things were really popular at the time. And then they all had their little names like Tinky Winky. And that's the only one I remember.
Tinky Winky, Dipsy, Lala, and Poe. I think you should be knowing your Teletubby names.
I'm concerned that Tim knew those so easily. How much Teletubbies did you watch, Tim?
Tinky Winky, I think, was the purple one. Poe was the small red one. Lala, I'm not sure.
She's yellow, right?
I believe so, yes.
She was the girl, I think.
Well, weren't they all androgynous?
That's what I say. Did they really have a gender? I don't know.
Because I think the people who played them are different gender,
Well, I would assume they did at some point. But yeah, I mean, maybe if you are up on your Teletubby knowledge and would like to join us next week, we'll have you on because Joy does not remember. I just remember them being very merchandise heavy. Like there was TV shirts, there was like getting in your Burger King, and I remember I got the little purple one, Tiggy Wiggy, in my Burger King meal when I was little.
And I remember one Christmas, it was very hard to get the Teletubbies cuddly toy type things. And my mum got me one from Woolworths because she thought it was a wacky, funny present. And she managed to get one. Like the Christmas when it was impossible to get one, she got me a Poe, a red one.
That's awesome.
It was funny. And in the end, I had it for a while. I maybe had it for a year or so. And where I was working at the time at Nationwide Building Society, a lady there had a very young daughter who loved the Teletubbies. And I said, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you my Teletubby doll. And this little girl loved it. So it went to a good home.
And there's Tim showing everybody how to be kind. Do we have anything else for the people?
No, in fact, all I would say is just generally be kind. But if you do happen to have a late 90s era Teletubby toy, maybe pass it on to a child.
I don't know. It might be worth a lot of money now.
Or eBay it, whatever you prefer.
I haven't gave that a Google, but I feel like those are probably worth money. And with that, bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.